Today we start out with Ted Bundy. He murdered at least 30 young women across several states from Washington to Florida. He was executed on January 24th, 1989 at the Florida State Prison in Rayford, Florida via the electric chair. He declined to get a special meal and was instead given the regular steak, eggs, hash browns, and toast, which sounds pretty good to me. His last words were, "I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends." John Wayne Gacy. His crime was murdering 33 young men and boys. He was executed on May 10th, 1994 at the Stateville Correctional Center in Crest Hill, Illinois. He was executed by lethal injection. His last meal was fried shrimp, a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, French fries, and strawberries. That sounds pretty good to me. His last words were, "Kiss my ass." On to Donald Dillbeck. His crime was that he murdered during a carjacking. Specifically, he murdered Lee County Sheriff Deputy Dwight Lynn Hall and Fay Lam Van. He was executed on February 23rd, 2023 at the Florida State Prison in Rayford, Florida by lethal injection. His last meal was pretty good. Fried shrimp, mushrooms, onion rings, butter pecan ice cream, and chocolate. His last words, "I really messed up." Aileen Wournos murdered 7 men in Florida. She was executed on October 9th, 2002 at the Florida State Prison in Rayford, Florida. She was executed by lethal injection, and her last meal, she declined a special meal, but instead had a hamburger and other regular prison food. Her last words were, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock. I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus on June 6th. Like the movie Big Mothership and all, I'll be back." Gary Gillmore. He committed 2 counts of murder in Utah. He was executed on January 17th in 1977 at the Utah State Prison in Draper, Utah. He was executed by firing squad, and he had a hamburger, hard-boiled eggs, baked potato, coffee, and 3 shots of Jack Daniel's whiskey. His last words were, "Let's do it." Thomas Grasso. He murdered 2 elderly people in New York and Oklahoma. He was executed on March 20th, 1995 at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester, Oklahoma. He was executed by lethal injection, and his last meal were 2 dozen mussels, 2 dozen clams, a double cheeseburger, 6 ribs, 2 milkshakes, half a pumpkin pie, and SpaghettiOs. Wow, that's over the top. Anyway, his last words were, "I did not get my SpaghettiOs. I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this." Well, there you go. Albert Fish. He murdered 3 children and confessed to many more. He was executed on January 16th, 1936 at the Sing Sing prison in Ossining, New York. He was executed via the electric chair, and he had steak, chicken, ham, pork chops, potatoes, squash, and red wine for his last meal. Man, I'm telling you, these guys made out all right. His last words were, "I don't even know why I'm here." Velma Barfield. She murdered 4 people via arsenic poisoning. She was executed on November 2nd, 1984 at the Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina. She was executed by a lethal injection, and her last meal were cheese doodles and a 12-ounce can of Coca-Cola. Her last words, "I want to say that I'm sorry to everybody for what I've done. I want to thank everybody who's been supporting me all these 6 years." David Alan Gore. He committed 6 counts of murder involving young women. He was executed on April 12th in 2012 at the Florida State Prison in Rayford, Florida by lethal injection. His last meal was fried chicken, French fries, and soda. His last words, "I'm sorry for the death of your daughter. I am not the man I was back then." Charles Peace. He was convicted of murder and robbery. After killing a policeman in Manchester, he fled to his native Sheffield, where he became obsessed with his neighbor's wife, eventually fatally shooting her husband. He was executed on February 25th, 1879, at the Armley Goal, Leeds, England facility. He was executed by hanging. His last meal was English breakfast of eggs, bacon, sausage, and toast, and his last words were, "God help me." John Spenkelink. He murdered a fellow drifter in Florida. He was executed on May 25th, 1979, at the Florida State Prison in Rayford, Florida, via the electric chair. He declined a special meal, and we have no record of any meal that he ate. His last words were, "Capital punishment means those without the capital get the punishment." And that might be actually pretty accurate. Ronnie Lee Gardner. His murder occurred during an escape attempt from a courthouse. He was executed on June 18th in 2010 at the Utah State Prison in Draper, Utah, via the firing squad. His last meal was steak, lobster tail, apple pie, vanilla ice cream, and 7-Up. He also watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Now that's probably the best one that I've heard so far. The guy was living the dream. His last words were, "I do not have any last words. No." Robert Alton Harris. He was convicted of a double murder, including two teenage boys. He was executed on April 21st, 1992, at the San Quentin State Prison in California, via the gas chamber. His last meal was a 21-piece bucket of KFC chicken, 2 large Domino's pizzas, a 6-pack of Pepsi, and jelly beans. His last words, "You can be king or street sweeper, but everybody dances with the Grim Reaper." Teresa Lewis. Her crime was a conspiracy to murder her husband and a stepson for insurance. She was executed on September 23rd in 2010 at the Greensville Correction Center in Jarrett, Virginia. She was executed by the lethal injection, and her last meal was fried chicken, cheese with butter, Dr. Pepper, and apple pie. Her last words, "I just want Kathy to know that I love her, and I'm very sorry." Lawrence Russell Brewer. His crime was a hate crime and the murder of James Byrd Jr. He was executed on September 21st, 2011, at the Texas State Penitentiary in Huntsville, Texas. Lethal injection was the execution type, and his last meal was chicken fried steaks, triple bacon cheeseburger, cheese omelet, fried okra, 3 fajitas, pizza, ice cream, and a pound of barbecue. Man, if the lethal injection didn't kill him, the last meal would have. Sounded pretty good, though. He, however, did decline making a final statement. He was probably still chewing his food. Thank you for sticking with me on this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you'd like to hear some more or watch some more videos like this one, just click on the link above my head and enjoy it. Thank you. Have a good day.